The man. Was he from Gondor?
No, from the north. One of the Dunedain Rangers, I thought he was. His cloth was poor. And yet, he bore a strange ring. 2 serpents with emerald eyes, one devouring, the other crowned with golden flowers.
The Ring of Barahir. So Gandalf Greyheim thinks he has found Isildur's heir. The lost king of Gondor. He is a fool. The line was broken years ago.
What is up, Lord of the Rings fans? Here to talk about some more interesting, deeper connections from Lord of the Rings movies with the books they're based off of. Now, what we just saw there at the scene is Saruman talking about Aragorn and the line of kings from Gondor. But that's actually not accurate. Because in the books, Aragorn's line is one of the 2 brothers or the sons of Elendil, the first high king of the realms in exile being Arnor and Gondor. But we only hear about Gondor in the movie. Maybe that was just to simplify things, but in the books we know that the 2 lines are separated. Isildur, after cutting the one ring from Sauron's finger in the War of the Last Alliance, actually goes to Minas Tirith, or Minas Anor at the time, named after his brother, as well as being the Tower of the Sun. Now there he meets his son Menelil, who he helps kind of mentor into becoming the king of Gondor. Thus we have Anarian's line right there. He himself, though, travels somewhat northwest, heading to Rivendell to meet his wife and his son Valandil, who's too young to go to war. His other sons are with him, but as we know, the Gladden Fields occurs, and he is betrayed by the ring, and of course is unalived and abandoned to the Anduin. It is only Otard, his squire, who escapes to not only bring the remnants of Narsil, but also the Ring of Barahir to Rivendell, and thus the line of Isildur. This occurs at the beginning of the Third Age, and it's not until around 3,019 years later that we meet Aragorn in the Prancing Pony. But in that time, there are 2 lines of kings that exist. There's the line of Gondor from that same Anarion into Menelil, and then there's that line of Arnor, which is, of course, Isildur into Valandil. What ends up happening, though, is that as the kings of Arnor and the kings of Gondor go through history, the king of Arnor split into 3 realms because of the 3 princes not being able to decide from one of the kings, and it thus becomes Arthedain, Rudar, and Cardolan. And each realm is slowly taken down by the Witch King of Angmar, who was in the north in Carn Dûn. As this slowly happens, we see the line slowly dwindle, but the same thing occurs on Gondor's line, where we see numerous sea kings occur. We hear about Castamir, the usurper, who tried to take the throne as one of the kind of side relatives. And then we know about how in the events of Ironir and finally the Aenor, that, the king disappears and thus the stewards, take the throne. And that's a story for another video, because when we talk about Aenor, we have to talk about the whole events of Minas Morgul and where he went and so forth. But one of the last kings on the Arnor side is Arvedawi. And Arvedawi actually marries one of the princesses of Gondor, named Firiel. And these 2, thus, is the line that would lead to Aragorn, thus making him the High King and heir of Elendil, rather than Isildur or Anarion. He's actually both. And you wouldn't really pick that up in the movie. But there is one clue that would show this, and it is actually the Ring of Barahir. For the Ring of Barahir is far older than any of us ever realized when watching the movies. The ring is from the First Age, over 6,000 to 7,000 years prior to the events of the Lord of the Rings. It was from the House of Beor, the same house as Beren and Calaman, the One-Handed, or Beren and Luthien in the Lay of Luthien, the story we hear about a man and an elf falling in love. The ring was his father's and was given to him by Finrod Felagund, the very brother of Galadriel, during the Dagor Bragollach, one of the 5 battles that occurs in the First Age, this one being known as the Battle of Sudden Flames. Barahir came to the rescue of Finrod, thus saving him, and Finrod told him that he would be forever in his debt, giving the ring as proof of that. And if you've read the Silmarillion and the Beren and Luthien story, you know how things go. But it's always interesting to see how Aragorn even in the movies, has these deep callbacks to these events that aren't even mentioned in the books. That we see him be one of the of the lineage of the Edain, of the lineage of Numenor, and how far some of those artifacts are passed through time. But let me know what you think. Do you enjoy the kind of dumbed-down version that we see in the movies of Lord of the Rings? Or do you prefer the books' rich history and rich lineage that they provide for Aragorn, son of Arathorn?